Environmentalists blasted the State Department of Environmental Quality and Chemical Waste Management of Carlyss today. They're upset over an agreement that would resolve numerous penalties against CWMI. But Teresa Schmidt reports state officials say the settlement is fair.
Chemical Waste Management operates a hazardous waste disposal landfill in Carlyss. The company and the State Department of Environmental Quality have worked out a proposed deal to settle a stack of alleged violations dating back several years. The company would pay a $25,000 fine, but manager Bernie Lavrant says they would also make some $10 million worth of improvements to the facility.
We have committed to build facilities at the plant that will enhance the environment. We've committed to community environmental enhancement programs, and so really we think it's an excellent agreement.
State officials held a meeting to explain the details to the news media. Assistant Secretary Glenn Miller says the deal is good for the environment.
I think this is a good settlement document for the state because we're getting the facility to take care of these problems that have been occurring for the last 5 or 6 years.
Then environmentalists had their own news conference. They're against the settlement. John Liebman of the Louisiana Environmental Action Network says the penalty is too low.
This is a company with revenues well into the billions. In 1990, I believe its revenues were approximately $1.175 billion. And I would probably, and it might not be the correct analogy, but I would think that Waste Management spends more on coffee than it's prepared to pay for 17 violations here.
Plus, they object the company admits no guilt. About 40 Chem Waste employees showed up at the environmentalist news conference. Workers like Randall Johnson wanted to defend their company.
Now, them people out there in the public right now think that we bury nuclear waste out there and all these employees have been nuked and glow in the dark. And that's not so. What we're saying is get your investigation down pat before you go public with it.
The public has until December 18th to comment on the settlement. Teresa Schmidt, 7 News.
At this time, DEQ does not plan to hold a public hearing on the settlement.
Margaret, also from the Capitol tonight, a Baton Rouge lawmaker is raising questions about recent settlements the Department of Environmental Quality is making with polluters. Environmental reporter Marvin McGraw has this exclusive report.
Representative Kip Holding claims the Department of Environmental Quality is being lax in its efforts to penalize polluters. In this letter to State Attorney General Richard Ayub, Holden raises questions about a recent decision by the DEQ to settle a $600,000 fine initially assessed Chemical Waste Management for only $25,000.
I'm encouraging Mr. Ayub to aggressively look at imposing severe penalties on these companies rather than the lax enforcement suggested by Mr. Midbow to get these companies to clean up the act.
Holden claims a host of state environmental programs, including one which cleans up toxic waste sites, depend on money from fines.
These penalty assessments, these mega penalty assessments that I've talked about, were not being collected. We're actually collecting money. So in effect, more money will be flowing into these funds because we're actually collecting the dollars. As long as they're being appealed, no penalties are ever collected.
DEQ Secretary Kai Midbow says he hasn't seen Holden's letter, but maintains the smaller fines mean faster compliance by polluters. Midbow claims the large fines issued by prior administrations resulted in lengthy court battles.
My hope is by doing that, we won't get them to automatically appeal these decisions, but actually do the things that we want to get them into compliance and also collect a reasonable penalty.
But some environmentalists question the policy and the message it may be sending to polluters.
We're saying that we're not going to stop you from doing this.
I'm Marvin McGraw, Channel 2 Eyewitness News.
By the way, some environmentalists also claim the smaller fines could violate federal environmental regulations.